I think we will soon have to come to terms with the fact that there are factions, in the American pluralistic society that are so adamantly opposed that I'm not sure how long we can coexist.
I was confirmed a Catholic June 1st of 2024, and I've been attending Mass since 2020.
Okay, you've been a catechumen for 4 years?
Yeah. I was raised an agnostic, so I had a lot of hang-ups, theological hang-ups, rational hang-ups. The first thing I thought is I needed to change something in my life. So I started to explore different ideas to see, well, can these ideas help me? Because I am in a pit of suffering and I can't overcome this on my own.
I came into the church at Easter 2019, and I started going to Mass the end of 2017, early 2018.
What were you before?
A very secular Jew. As like a secular person, like the idea that God is real and there is something else out there and there are implications for what we do on earth, that was wildly new for me. Observant Jews don't like to hear this, but Jesus Christ was the Messiah who appeared to the Jews first and fulfilled the Old Testament. So, but that is the teaching of the Catholic Church. So,
I look silly. Actually, I can't see myself, but I imagine I look silly.
No. Let's go to your conversion story.
No one in my family is Catholic. They're Buddhists actually, but not like practicing Buddhists, except my grandparents. Up until this point, my life was all centered around me and being better than other people and being the smartest person in the room, all those things. And I realized that it's all pointless and vacuous and kind of sad. I wanted to figure out what it meant to be a good guy and, just start to pursue that.
yeah, we just have to put it back,
What was that like? What was the feeling of being lost before?
It was just despair. At my ambitions crumbling in my hands, at repeating the same mistake over and over and over again. I would say it could sum up as lack of virtue maybe, but it's just a lack of things that are gonna help me be a healthy, successful person. There were gaps in my life that I needed to fill, like physical gaps, but then there were spiritual gaps behind those. Whenever I try to solve these physical problems, there has to be another way to do that. I wasn't able to brute force my way through it. I had to find another path to get there.
When I came into the church, I was smoking weed basically 7 days a week. That's not generally something you should do. Casual sex, like pornography, things like that. I had a really rough time my freshman year of college. Got to New York. It was just like a total mess. It's like really lonely. I don't think I got a single good night's sleep in Lower Manhattan. My roommate was a very faithful Catholic, and a friend across the hall was a very faithful Catholic. I would come back to the dorm at like 2 a.m. after a night out, and I'd hear them talking about C.S. Lewis and Dostoevsky and classics and philosophy, and I was just absolutely fascinated by it. They would say, you should come to Mass with us, you should check it out. And it was getting to be finals, and it was dark and cold, and the seasonal depression, I guess, was starting to hit. And eventually I just walked into a Mass one day, and I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know the prayers. I didn't know whether to stand or sit or do anything. But it was just like the most amazing thing I ever saw.
What is the Catholic Church offering that is attracting students that perhaps they can't find anywhere else? This is not unique to Catholicism, but it's a big part of our Catholic tradition, is an intellectual inquiry into the faith. We have answers to a lot of questions that students have when they start thinking about religion seriously for the first time. Questions like the problem of evil, that they come upon these questions and then they meet people who have thought about this seriously and have answers or the beginnings of answers.
I looked to secular philosophy or scientific philosophy, reading through the Western canon, see what others have to say. What is a life worth living? There are a lot of bleak answers. Like reading a lot of Nietzsche, reading a lot of Hume doesn't do great things for like personal action, like personal behavior. I sort of canceled out every other path accessible via reason alone. I think we all have faith in something, whether we're aware of it or not. But at some point, you have to believe certain things are good or certain things are right in order to act at all.
I don't know what they have against Catholics, but Catholics are treated worse than anybody.
Well, first, it's good to be home, and I do think the Catholic Church is my home.
After Catholics split fairly evenly between Trump and President Biden back in 2020, on Tuesday, they broke for Trump by about 15 points.
I would say theocracy has to be distinguished from what is sometimes called integralism. Integralism is about not clerics but laymen governing the state, but where you have a state that recognizes in some official way the Catholic Church as the true religion.
How do you know Sean?
So it's funny. I mean, he came up to me and he was like, "Hey, I remember you." And we met 8 months ago at St. Peter's. There was this men's group event where I think there was a talk or something. And then we went outside and there was a bonfire. And I just sat with Sean. We talked about life for 2 hours.
I heard something about a mafia. What is that, like an inside joke or?
Oh, I mean, he was saying that there's some Catholic mafia going to take over DC politics. And he said, I'm a part of it. And, you know, I guess I would be a part of it. Yeah. I mean, I'm not aware of any organization, but yeah, sure. I'd love to return DC to the faith.
Okay. Return it to the faith? Was it ever?
I mean, everything belongs to God. So, in a way, yeah.
You said your family was liberal.
Yeah.
So did you like get into fights with them, arguments?
Yes.
When you became Catholic, has your faith influenced at all your political beliefs?
I'm I think more concerned about I think the crisis of community, just in terms of they say young people, particularly young men, don't really have a lot of close friends. They spend all their time online.
I think becoming Catholic definitely changed my outlook on politics. I went back to the basics of what is freedom, what is good, what do those words mean, and how can I apply that to a political ideology? Love Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro and whatnot, and kind of grew out of that because of just how society was going overall. Make America Great Again was just being overthrown by moral degenerates, and I just couldn't stand for it.
What media figures do you consume now? Or do you watch now?
Do I consume now?
Yeah.
Well, that's a funny story because it does go back to when I first started college a couple of years ago, but Nick Fuentes at the current time.
Do you feel afraid to share that you watch or listen to Nick Fuentes? What are your feelings around that?
No, I'm not afraid to say that. He's controversial because he speaks on the issues nobody wants to talk about.
At best, I guess you could call me a white majoritarian.
Hitler, good guy, bad guy?
That's the top. Well, there are no good and bad guys. They're just people. It's important that the government should maintain a white majority in the country. We want a visionary, fearless leader.
Okay.
Who's going to put Jesus first.
Mm-hmm.
Straight up. That was a serious Roman. It wasn't even like a subtle, a wave.
It's this radical belief in Jesus Christ that has to come first, even in politics.
He does have a lot of accusations against him that he's anti-Semitic.
I think it's nonsense. I'll say this: when it comes to the faith, hating people is incorrect. Of course, we can't hate anyone. We have to have charity for all men. But when it comes to something like a conspiracy theory, saying something like maybe they caused 9/11 or whatever, I don't see how that's a problem, because it's really more the state of Israel is they're not an ally. These people do nothing for us. We pretend like we need them because they're the only democracy in the Middle East. We send our children to die in some war for no reason.
Nick Fuentes, how do you feel about him as someone who claims to be Catholic and yet says a lot of anti-Semitic stuff?
Does he claim to be Catholic?
He claims to be super Catholic.
Catholics in general in Europe have not always had the best relationship with Jews. And I think that was one of the really important things about the Second Vatican Council, is that there was like an explicit repudiation of the blood libel. That, Jews are collectively responsible for the death of Jesus Christ. Nick Fuentes is an idiot.
Please join me in welcoming Paul Caseworth.
So the question perhaps today is this: did God intervene on earth just to give us another identity to fight over? Or to build us a civilization or an empire with a cross painted on it? Or did he tell us to live differently? The Gospels become a weapon to fight a culture war in a collapsing civilization. But confusing the Christian way with the way of that civilization is a fatal error. Fighting our civilizational war in the name of Christ will fail, and catastrophically, because Christ doesn't fight wars except those that go on in the heart.
Would you say your Catholic faith would influence how you make decisions if you were to be elected in a certain position of power?
Well, of course. I mean,
yeah.
I think a lot of people, the secular worldview is, okay, you have your religious beliefs on one hand, but then you just completely abandon those when you do anything else. My Catholic faith informs everything I do, everything I believe, every minute of every hour of every day.
People in my generation, we struggle with selfishness. We struggle with instant gratification. A lot of the communities that had once raised up young people, I think, in a stronger foundation, stronger structures. There were more churches. People went to church. Families were not separated as they are more commonly now with divorce rates up.
Do you think that there are policy issues that can be implemented today to change those kind of declines?
Policy can be helpful, but no, you can't force everything on the people. You can't force faith on the people. I think putting up boundaries to easy access to sins will be helpful. You can mitigate. You can make the quality of life generally better, and you can remove the things that prevent people from falling into these terrible cycles.
Obviously, if you take that idea seriously, it does have a lot of implications on pluralism and freedom of religion more broadly, right?
Okay. So what would it mean? Like, this seems like this could be edited into a terrible clip again.
And also, yeah, this is not about trying to get you. I'm honestly interested in this.
I believe in freedom of religion insofar as it's not like I don't think Satanism is a religion. And I'm not like a freedom of religion absolutist where I would actually like allow, Satanist temples or like statues to be in public places. Like I would get rid of that. Stuff like pornography, I would absolutely ban. But in terms of like Orthodox Jews going to a synagogue, I mean, I'm fine with people practicing their religion as long as they're not, destroying children or families or worshiping Satan.
For those who are already like politically on the right and already have an anti-modern disposition, Catholicism can represent something that's like the beacon of Western civilization, or that which has stood athwart wokeism all these years, a living remnant of a more beautiful past. And so then you become curious, and then perhaps the heart is awakened to the love of God. Let us pray that that is what is happening.